Now this is going to be one of those vlogs where I'm working on something that's not what I'm going to be talking about. What I'm working on is a new Dreadnought. Well, new old. I think there had been one out like this previously, but this is an updated design, new molds and all that. This is from the new Leviathan box set. This is the Ballistus Dreadnought. And Ballistus means big shooty thingy. But I'm just doing some assembly on it without my optivisor, so sometimes I don't see things clearly. But while this is what's going to be going on camera, it's not going to have anything to do with what I'm talking about. Now, what I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about these a lot, but I see a lot of things, and I get questions, and I have discussions, and it's all good stuff. But I just like passing it along because I think it can be helpful. But I want to talk a little more about paintbrushes. Now, I kind of knew this. I don't know that I'd ever thought about it. Hang on, I gotta look at the instructions, which I've got up on the computer screen. I don't know if those are supposed to be there. Hang on. Okay, yes they are. Glad I didn't clip those off. Always helps. This was a kit. I didn't get the Leviathan set. I didn't want to spend $8 gazillion on the Leviathan set just to build this and one or two figures. So I got this off of eBay. There's people who split the boxes up, and I got this off of eBay at a much more reasonable price. So that's why I have just this one. But anyway, I wanted to talk about, I need to quit interrupting myself because I forget what I was even talking about. I want to talk about paintbrushes. I had known, but not really actively thought about the fact that there's only a few manufacturers of paintbrushes, and I'm talking quality paintbrushes. I mean, there's lots and lots of cheap paintbrushes out there, and they have their uses. I mean, sometimes cheap means bad quality and you don't want to get it, and sometimes cheap just means low cost. I've got a jar full of brushes that are probably no more than 15-20 cents each, but they have their purpose. So I'm not talking about those kind of brushes. I'm talking about sable brushes, Kolinsky sable brushes, quality brushes, the kind that you spend a little more money on, and and this thing's push fit, and that are going to give you really good performance. And if you take care of them, they're going to last for years. So, that peg is not fitting well. Yeah, I know how to deal with that. But anyway, so we're talking about higher quality brushes. Now, I don't know the exact number of manufacturers in the world, but for modeling purposes, you're probably talking just a handful. Because, and if I can find it, I will link to a video that I think, if I remember right, was about Winsor & Newton and how they make their brushes and the process you have to go through to become a brush maker at Winsor & Newton. So you don't just call up Brush Factory number 47, even though this is push fit. I'm going to glue it. You don't call up Brush Factory number 47 and say, hey, give me a run of 100,000 Kolinsky sable brushes. Maybe there is a place like that in the world, but I would be a little dubious of their quality. How you like the use of the word dubious there? It's pretty good for this early in the morning. But so you've got a handful of manufacturers that really do a good job of making good brushes that are going to be durable, that are going to keep their point, that kind of thing. You've got, in the UK, you've got Winsor & Newton, of course. You have Rosemary & Co. In Germany, you have, I want to say it's slipping me now. Is it Da Vinci? I think Da Vinci's in Germany. I think. Raphael, I believe, is in France. In the US, there's a company called Dynasty. And hang on, I got to check back with the instructions. For once, Citadel does something in numerical order. You put part 10 and 11 on, and then part 12 and 13. Boy, that's crazy. Anyway, where was I at? Dynasty here in the U.S. Da Vinci, Raphael. Seems like I'm leaving one out. But the point being, it's not to enumerate all of the brush makers, but there are a fairly limited number in the world. So when you see brushes being marketed directly to painters, the likelihood is that it's an existing manufacturer that is going to be making those. Like when Squidmark came out with his line of brushes. Now, to his credit, and I appreciated that he did this, he said these brushes are made by Da Vinci, and but they were to his specifications. But what they basically did is they sent him samples of, okay, we've got these different brushes, we've got this different types of sable. They can vary the brush count and things like that. But they basically said, here's different brushes, here's different handles that we offer, and he kind of, it's not like he sat at his house with, a group of little friendly sables and, kindly shaved their butts while he worked on making the bristles, and then he, went out in the woods and found a limb and hand carved the handle that he wanted and sent off to him and said, okay, here's what I want. They said, here's what we have, so, and I'm not criticizing that. I understand, I understand the manufacturing process. You've got to work with what you've got. If you don't have the manufacturing capability to do it exactly like you want, you have to do it with the tools that someone else gives you. I get that. So, but he was very transparent in his approach to it. Broken Toad apparently was Rosemary & Co. I've read some things that say that Broken Toad is no longer around. I haven't looked that up to confirm it, but they were a maker of brushes and other modeling products that had a good reputation. Of course, Artis Opus, I've talked about this before. Artis Opus is Rosemary & Co. Now, what they do is they did specify a different handle shape, and I am told by folks what have inside information that there is a slightly different bristle count for their brushes for whatever reason. Some people like, brushes for different reasons. More bristles, less bristles, longer bristles, shorter bristles, whatever. But the dry brushes are just, I've shown this before, but the dry brushes, there's no difference other than the color of the handle between the Rosemary & Co. and the Artis Opus, and that's because Rosemary & Co. makes it. They're identical, except for the color of the handle. The rough equivalent of the Artis Opus brushes are the Rosemary & Co. Series 33. And the shorter brushes, I don't remember the series. I think it's Series 323. That are the Kolinsky Sable. I can't get them here in the U.S. easily because of some treaty. But recently, a patron told me about there is a new American company that is going to be releasing some brushes that are directed at minis, and they look like good brushes. I mean, I'm not going to knock them, but they did specify they are made in the USA at a very old brush maker in the U.S. And I did some research, and it's probably Dynasty brushes, which a lot of people have probably never heard of. I've tried Dynasty brushes, and they were good brushes. I just ended up liking Rosemary & Co. better. But the point I'm making, and there is a point. Oh, and that, okay, before I get to the point, that I keep referencing it, but that video where the painting phase talked to the guy from that had worked in the product development at Citadel for quite a while. He mentioned, and this was kind of a surprise to me. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that, because I thought Citadel would be big enough to have their own manufacturing capabilities for this, but Citadel's brushes are made by Winsor & Newton. So that was kind of like, a Scooby-Doo moment for me. That was the case there. So now to get to the point. The point being that your high quality brushes, I missed enough. Your high quality brushes are going to be made by a very limited number of companies. So when you're thinking of purchasing brushes, consider that. Stop and think, who would be the most likely manufacturer for this? And I'm not saying that to dissuade anyone from supporting a brush manufacturer. I've a couple of people have contacted me when I mentioned that Artis Opus is made by Rosemary & Co. And they said, well, are you saying I shouldn't buy Artis Opus? I said, no, not at all. I'm just saying, know that for a different handle shape and a slightly different bristle count, you're going to be paying more for the name, And if you like supporting them, I certainly don't wish any ill to Artis Opus. I'm always grateful that when he's no longer affiliated with them, as I understand it, but James Otero did an interview with me. I thought it was a very, very good interview. I don't think it went over real well, mainly because when you think Artis Opus, you think Byron Ord. And people don't realize that James Otero was kind of the guy in the background that was doing a lot of the business side of things. Production, well, not production, but, the business side of things. But, I don't wish them ill will at all. And, if you like buying their brushes, but just know, when you're buying Broken Toad, when you're buying Citadel, when you're buying Artis Opus, when you're buying whatever this new manufacturer is that's going to have a Kickstarter in the next few months, and I can't remember their name, and forgive me for not remembering. You're buying brushes that are made by somebody else, and you might want to check that manufacturer's brush to see, well, does it do anything that I don't already have. I talked to a couple of people, like for instance, who bought the Squidmar brushes, and I mean, they said they were very good brushes. But one of the guys, and I thought this is not a knock on Squidmar at all. It was unrealistic of the guy who I was talking to. He said, but I didn't feel like it improved my painting. And I'm like, well, it's not brushes that improve your painting. It's your painting that makes appropriate use of good brushes. I've learned this, you have to develop your skill to where those better tools mean more. If you've been a long time patron, you know when I talked about how, I started off with some very cheap brushes, and I had like 3 levels of brushes. I had some very cheap brushes. I had some Army Painter brushes that were supposed to be natural bristle, and then I had a Winsor & Newton brush. I couldn't tell the difference between any of them, so I just kept using the cheap brush. But the more I used the cheap brush over and over and over again and developed my skills as a painter, then when I switched to the Army Painter brush, I thought, wow, I can see a difference between them. And then I started going, wait a minute, this Army Painter brush just feels kind of cheap and feels kind of weird. And then I switched to Winsor & Newton, and all of a sudden I was making use of that. And my growth tends to be very slow. I've known some people that just take right to it. You get a guy like John Nenus that decides to paint minis, and the next year he's winning awards. They just got skills with a Z. I don't have that. What I have, it's just taken me many, 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 many years and hundreds of models to figure out the little bit that I do know. But the paintbrushes, good quality paintbrushes, are going to bring out your skills, but they are not going to impart something that's not there. So, one, I would say if you're looking at any new line of brushes, they're going to market them, and they're going to say these are going to give you the smoothest blends of any paintbrush on the market. These are going to give you some quality that's going to be better than any paintbrush on the market. Well, of course they're going to tell you that. They want to sell product. I don't begrudge them that. But keep in mind, it's like years ago when I was first learning to drive and first getting into cars. I was looking at a car, and I just really liked Firebirds, and then I started looking at them, and I was like, wait a minute, it's just a Camaro with different body panels. So when you're evaluating whether to get this new line of brushes or that new line of brushes, or get them from this manufacturer or that manufacturer, do a little research. Find out who makes them if you can, because you may find that you can save money. Getting brushes directly from Rosemary & Co., for example, and I've talked about, it's hard to get the Series 33 here in the U.S., so you can get the Series 99, and I think it works just as well. But regardless of that, you can get Rosemary & Co. brushes sometimes for 1/3 the cost of what you can get Artis Opus brushes. Now, people say, yeah, but I see all these mini painters using Artis Opus. Yeah, not in all cases. Wasn't certainly in my case. But in a lot of cases, Artis Opus sends them those brushes. If Artis Opus told me, hey, we'll send you brushes anytime you need them, I'd use Artis Opus brushes. One, because Rosemary & Co. is now my favorite brush. That's what I use. I enjoy it. But if they said, "Hey, we're going to send these to you," yeah, I'll be all about Artis Opus. I've always said, I like using a variety of products, but if Vallejo ever contacted me and said, "We'll supply you everything you need, but you have to use our products exclusively," okie dokie. Gonna have a big Vallejo symbol right there. I'm not above that. One, I know Vallejo's good. I don't mind recommending it, but when people are sponsoring you, it's a different story. So next time, if you buy Citadel brushes, maybe look at Winsor & Newton. Same brushes. I think they're a little cheaper to get them as the Winsor & Newton label. Same way with Artis Opus, this new manufacturer. It's probably Dynasty. And like I said, Dynasty are good brushes. When I tested them a couple of years back, when I did all that testing between Raphael and Da Vinci and Winsor & Newton and Rosemary & Co., and I'd actually had Artis Opus in the mix because I didn't know its origin. Dynasty was one that I tested, and they were every bit as good as the others. Good brushes. But you're going to pay a premium for it. So think about the origin of the brush. And then if you decide to spend the money on it, well, you're spending it because you support the creator. You're supporting the work that they do. You like, maybe a lot of people say, yeah, I know who makes, I was talking to somebody that said, I know who makes Rosemary & Co., but I just want to support the company because they're focused on the hobby. They're good for the hobby. They're trying to address directly the needs of the model maker with their products and with their videos. And so I get that, but just check out the lineage, I guess you'd say, of your brushes. And you might find that if cost is a factor, then especially if it's a significant difference, then maybe you pick the origin rather than the derivative, I guess you'd say, and save a few coins but still get the same quality. All right, well, I haven't made a whole lot of progress on this because I've been rambling along, but I'm going to get back to putting this dreadnought together, and I'm mostly doing it right now is just a break after finishing this. And I don't know if this will be the next thing that I actually show on camera for YouTube. It may not. I haven't decided yet. But sometimes I just like finding a little model and assembling it, and just kind of setting my brain in neutral so that I can just kind of cruise along. So anyway, you know the deal. Have fun. Have fun with all your stuff, with your brushes, with your tools, with your assembly, with your painting, with all of it. And sometimes it's fun to save money. So that's part of the mix too. Happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.